First round sports time is 7:59 on a Friday. You're in the first round here with Ron Dahlbeck in our St. Jude studios. Alongside me, my co-host, Chris Roberts. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing well. How about yourself, Ron?
Well, I'm not a Florida State fan, so I'm doing really good.
Yeah.
I'm feeling excited about week one in college football. Last week was awesome. I know we're going to get into college football, but obviously the big story, it's week one in the NFL right now, and Dallas Cowboys finally got this whole drama with Zeke over, which means that the drama with Dak Prescott just started, and the drama with signing Amari Cooper, their wide receiver, is just going to start. Zeke gets 6 years and $90 million. I'm just so over it. I mean, it's really not blowing any wind up my skirt at all at this point. My interest level in that is just zero.
Yeah, me too. I mean, that was the question that I was having too is, what about Dak and what about Amari?
Right.
What about the other players and what tone does that set, with the Dallas Cowboys and with just that whole organization as itself? I mean, why, Jerry? Why put yourself through that headache?
It's the way their organization handles stuff. And we talked about the Dallas fans and their myopic view. I mean, the whole team could be in the hospital and they'll still win the Super Bowl. I mean, it's just crazy how myopic some fan bases, Dallas, Notre Dame, Lakers. I mean, if I run into one more Laker fan that says, well, we got AD, so now we're going to win the championship, I'm going to go out of my mind. But, that's not even the big story in the NFL. One last thing on Dallas. Dallas last week offered Dak Prescott $30 million, and he countered at $40 million. I mean, how much cocaine is he doing? $40 million?
He must have snorted a half a key because he's not worth $30 million.
I mean, he's not even one of the top 15 quarterbacks in the league, is he? Or am I out of my mind?
No, you're correct about that. I mean, he's not a top 15 quarterback, but he's pretty good in fantasy.
Fantasy. I think the statistic with him is, in the last 30 games, he's had 3 games where he threw for 300 or more yards. Yeah. I don't play fantasy. On a Friday night, I'm doing other things. I'm not getting around with my guy friends and rolling a 67-sided dice, trying to be the grand wizard over in the corner with a stick, shooting lightning bolts and playing Dungeons and Dragons. Right. I've never gotten into NFL fantasy ever. I like picking games like you and I, we're in a pool where we pick against the spread. Right. Real things. Mm-hmm. I'm just trying to figure out, how is Dak Prescott awesome in fantasy? How does that work?
Well, I mean, you go by your completions. I mean, you can tell he can't really throw the ball down the field, but he's gotten better with Amari. So he's able to stretch the field a little bit, so he's able to gain a little bit more points. And so with Amari coming in, he's able to, throw a little bit more, more touchdowns or whatnot. So the more touchdowns you get, the higher points you get in fantasy. So, I mean, a touchdown is 7 points, so it goes on from there.
So I even hate talking about Dallas, but at times they're relevant just because they're such a circus, not because of what they do on the field. I mean, in the last 4 years, they've won 1 playoff game. So, I mean, I don't know why Dallas fans every year think they're going to win the Super Bowl. You've done nothing, literally. And if it's Dak Prescott, I mean, he's a good guy. He doesn't cause off-the-field problems. But you got to focus on winning and not focus on selling so much Campbell's soup, honestly. And when you get offered $30 million, the answer is yes. You don't come back with I want 40. But this isn't even the main story in the NFL. And sadly, it's another case of insane carnival happening with the Oakland Raiders, with John Gruden, with Mike Mayock, the GM up there. The whole AB thing, this is what you get. When you go to prom with the ugly girl, she'll dance with you all night, but you're stuck with the ugly girl and all the drama that brings with all the people talking about, the girl that you brought to prom. Right. AB is the ugly girl. He's super talented and probably one of the top 5, definitely one of the top 5 wide receivers in the NFL. But you have to hold his hand and own the fact that you brought him in here knowing he was a knucklehead. And I'm just wondering how bad is John Gruden beating his head against the wall, because we haven't even played game 1. He called his GM a cracker. He threatened to punch him in the face. 2 of the Oakland Raider players that were on the field yesterday had to separate him and Mike Madoff, the GM. And the whole thing with the helmet, sitting out, he's getting fined, the Instagram stuff. I mean, this is the kind of drama that you look at with organizations like the New York Knicks, that you look at with organizations like the Cincinnati Bengals, like the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, we can go on with the insane, drama-filled teams that aren't productive. We don't talk about these teams as Super Bowl champions. I mean, the Knicks haven't won a championship since I was a fetus. You know, and I'm almost 50, unfortunately. So when you bring this drama into your organization, this is what you get. This is it. I mean, I don't think that there should be any shock or Gruden getting up there yesterday going, look, he's a great guy. He's not a great guy. He's a great player, but he's a donut head. He's causing your team a lot of stress and a lot of problems. It's just ridiculous.
Well, I mean, first off, that's what you get. I mean, you got to think. I mean, he came from a great organization. He came from Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is one of the premier organizations in the NFL.
Right.
I mean, so you got to look at the coach he came from. He came from a Super Bowl winning coach who obviously knows what he's doing and obviously knows how to coach up his players. So you're looking at all of these things and you're putting it into a package, and you have this one player who actually kind of destroyed the locker room, just the whole concept of wide receivers in that locker room.
Right, before game one.
Right. I mean, that was in his old organization. So what do you think is going to happen in this organization?
And you make a great point. So he came from a great organization that has a winning tradition. They don't take any BS.
Right.
Right. And what were the Raiders thinking when a great organization that sets the template for how to run an NFL organization gets rid of a clown like this? I mean, isn't there like, neon going off, skywriting, the blimp, pigeons, smoke signals? Isn't there anything going off in your head? Because we know John Gruden is running the show up there in Oakland right now.
Right.
What's going on in your head that says, I can fix him? I can fix him. I mean, I could see maybe him going to the Patriots. Bill Belichick has reformed, guys. The running back from Cincinnati wasn't Ickey Woods, but
you're talking about Corey Dillon.
Yeah, Corey Dillon. And Randy Moss got ran out of Minnesota when Chris Carter was there, who was a stand-up guy and a Hall of Famer.
Right.
And they got so sick of him. But then, he went to the Patriots and he squared away. I don't even think that the Patriots would want to take this on right now. So what is John Gruden thinking? Like, yeah, this is the answer. He's going to come in here and we're going to square him away and everything's going to be cool. If it's not cool, why are you taking on the drama? And if you think that, what's in your head that's making you think you're the guy that's going to put a leash on this puppy?
I don't think it was that John Gruden was thinking he's going to be the person who's going to be able to contain AB's personality. I think it was more of a money grab to actually have a player going into Las Vegas. I mean, they're thinking about having that move to Las Vegas. You don't have a marquee player, in there. I mean, you had Marshawn Lynch, but he was on the other side of his career.
Right.
I mean, you had Amari Cooper, but
you got rid of him.
You got rid of him.
You got rid of Khalil Mack.
You got rid of Khalil Mack.
I'm starting to look at John Gruden. I'm looking at John Gruden now, and I'm starting to question him. Because before I said, look, you took an okay offense with Tampa Bay and a really lockdown defense, and you won a Super Bowl. And with all the quarterback camps that he runs and bringing the guys in that are the next draftees, as far as the quarterbacks, and breaking them down, teaching, I had a really high level of respect. But now after watching Hard Knocks, and they're going to let him play. How do you let him play? I mean, this is what happened in Dallas. You have two organizations doing idiotic, galactically challenging decisions. The decisions that they're making, it's blowing my mind. How do you let AB play when he racially slurs your GM, threatens to knock him out, doesn't show up for mandatory meetings, doesn't show up to mandatory practices, causes all kinds of stink over a stupid helmet? It's just nonsense. How do you let him play? I mean, at what point do you go, the inmates can't run the asylum anymore, and we need to take a stand, like Jerry Jones. It's just stupid. We talked about this last week. He had all the leverage against Zeke. All of them. He's under contract. Your first 3 games are against teams that are basically like a free spot on the bingo board. I mean, I think they're playing
New York.
Well, they're playing the Giants.
Right.
They're playing in week 3. Who are they playing in week 3? It's slipping my mind right now, but basically their first 3 games are really easy games. So he had all the leverage. He has him under contract. Your first 3 games are easy. I just start finding him. And besides that, he's another one who's a character issue guy. He's not great off the field. So why not take a hardline stance and say, look, you're under contract. When you want to show up, we'll pay you what we agreed to pay you. But until then, you could just stay in Cabo.
Yeah, I mean, even back to AB, I mean, the Raiders actually have the upper hand on AB as far as his contract goes. By suspending him, I mean, they could go back. They could take back guaranteed money. I mean, they can go back. They can actually X out his whole contract. And so they have the leverage over AB. And my thing is, if you have an organization that has that type of leverage over you, why would you even put yourself in a predicament like that? And if I'm Mike Mayock, why is it? I wouldn't let him play, and I would have, let him know that, look, we have these things over you. Basically, we can shut you down and you not get paid, and there's nothing you can do about it. Right. So, my thing is, why?
It's my way or the Long Island Highway.
So why would you even take that stance with AB? I personally wouldn't put up with it.
They're rewarding the spoiled children of the NFL. So Dallas has the Dolphins, Washington, and they open up at home against the Giants.
Right.
I mean, all those teams are like free spots on the bingo board. The only way it gets better is if your 4th game's against Tampa.
Right.
So, I mean, what am I in a rush for? Why am I going to reward you? I'm giving you a pay raise because you got into a verbal, hostile altercation with your girlfriend, then a security guard at the EDC. He's had all kinds of other off-the-field issues that I don't want to really go into right now.
Right.
And then he's going to put you over the barrel and say, I want to make triple or quadruple what I'm making right now when I'm under contract. That's what's getting me. That's not how it's supposed to work, right? I mean, am I out of my mind? Why are they doing this?
I mean, you're not out of your mind. I mean, personally, if I'm Jerry Jones, I'm putting something in his contract to protect myself because it's only just a matter of time before Zeke has some type of off-the-field incident.
Right.
It just goes without saying. Every year there is something that happens off the field with Ezekiel Elliott.
Yep. And that's a great point. And Jerry Jones probably isn't smart enough to do something like that because he's such a glory hog. But you're right. Putting something in the contract that's punitive to help keep him in line. And what you're really trying to do is avoid drama.
Exactly.
Because you can't win championships with drama. Most teams don't do it. When you look at the teams that win championships, they're solid, cohesive, working together as a team organizations. Not the Dallases, Cincinnatis, and Oaklands of the world. That kind of... I don't know how much I want to get started on this, but this is something that bothers me at a collegiate level and at a pro level. Is you enter into a union. You enter into a contractual agreement with a player and a team, whether it's college or pro. Let's take college.
All right.
You've got it. You're at college X. The coach is there. He wants to move on.
Right.
And he just wants to leave his. He's got 3 years left on his contract.
Right.
Why do the colleges let him out of that contract if he's a good coach? If you're the president or you're running the athletic department, you're the AD, why aren't you going to him saying, hey, you're under contract. We're not letting you out. You signed a contract. I mean, that's the first thing I would have said to Ezekiel. You're under a contract. We took a risk on you. Right. You were not a proven NFL player. You were nothing. You were a great college player. That doesn't always translate to being a great NFL player. So we gave you a contract that was compensatory with your actions.
Right.
You and you agreed to it. You said, I will play 4 years and I will accept this amount of money. And halfway into the deal, he goes and says it's not good enough now. Right. But the team took all the risk. So why is it in sports, whether it's college coaches, NFL players, they don't feel like they need to honor contracts anymore? Or am I just so old school? I mean, if I'm the guy, it's like, get off my lawn and I'm living in the 50s, then tell me that. But I just see an erosion of the ethics of sports.
Well, it's not necessarily the ethics of sports. I think you have to understand that of the business, the way business is run now, that when people feel they outdo their contracts, they outplay their contracts, they outwork their contracts, they feel like they're entitled to have more money or make more money. So in a situation like Zeke is considered one of the top 3 backs in the NFL right now. So he feels like he's outplayed his contract. So he feels I should negotiate my contract to actually reflect the impact that I'm having on this team.
Right, and I know that players have a small window. I know that's going to be his argument. I got to make all the money I can now. I really do get that.
Right.
But the team took a risk on you. No one knew you were going to be this great. No one knew that. So the team took all the risk. So at what point do you... It just bothers me that the players don't live up to the letter of what they signed. I mean, don't sign a long deal. If you want to bank on yourself, go in and tell Dallas, I'll sign a 3-year deal with an option to renegotiate after 2 years if I'm blowing it out. I'll sign a 2-year deal and, renegotiate. You can't have it both ways. You want all the money up front because you're a high draft pick, but then if you don't produce, the team's out all that money and you're out nothing. You didn't produce. So nobody complains about that. But when the team takes all the risk and drafts you and locks you into a 4 or 5 year deal, you got to honor that, right?
Yeah, you do. But, NFL players, I mean, they're a little different. I mean, you have players in other leagues, such as LeBron James, who took your approach, that betting on himself. I'm going to sign a 2-year contract, and I have an opt-out, after year 1 if I don't want to play for your team anymore, or I feel like, I've outplayed my contract. We're going to sit down and we're going to renegotiate. So I don't think NFL players actually think about doing stuff like that. I think the first thing they see is the guaranteed money up front. And so they don't never think about the back end. I mean, the same situation happened years ago with Philadelphia with Terrell Owens. I mean, you had that situation with Terrell Owens where he had all this money up front, and yes, he outplayed his contract. And then there was the big spectacle with him doing sit-ups in his driveway because he wanted to renegotiate his contract.
Right.
So I don't think the NFL players actually sit there and think about that money or think about the money when they sign these contracts. They just see the lump sum of money in the beginning.
So if you're a GM, if I'm a GM, I'm not letting the inmates run the asylum. If I'm Jerry Jones, I'm sticking to my guns, and I say, look, you signed an agreement.
Right.
So live up to it. If he doesn't live up to it, sit. Right. It's somebody else's headache next year. I mean, I got him for the next 2 years. If he wants to sit in 2 years, go sign with someplace else, that's fine. I learned my lesson, and maybe it comes down to the wording in the contract better. But I don't need that in my organization. Like Oakland came out and said this week, you're either all in or all out. I don't look at AB and think he's all in. He's all in on AB. He's not all in on the Raiders.
Right.
I mean, if you're the GM, what's the position you're taking, Chris?
Well, a prime example of that was last year with Pittsburgh with Le'Veon Bell.
I think Pittsburgh did the right thing.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. I'm just... And now we have Melvin Gordon. I want more money. Well, we're not going to give it to you. Well, then I want to trade. Okay, there's the door. Go out there and see what, if you want to try and go manufacture a trade and you want to play GM instead of living up to your contract, then if I'm the GM and I'm the organization, I tell Melvin Gordon to go hit it. And he's probably a great kid. We never hear him getting into problems off the field. He's obviously a talent. But if you want to take this approach and not honor what you signed, the door's over there. And here's the thing. You and I talked about this last week. It gets real sticky with colleges.
Right.
And I actually got into a discussion with a Hurricane fan this week about this, is that if the coach leaves out of his contract, he's got 2 years left, and he goes to another college.
Right.
Does that free up the kids that signed to play for that school to go to another school?
Right. And so looking at that, I mean, you have to understand that, I mean, there are several parts to a contract.
Right.
And so, I mean, you have to be able to have something that you can agree upon. And, when that player signs that letter of intent, he's agreeing to go and play for that institution. So I mean, technically, he's legally buying to stay at that institution.
Right.
I mean, however, the situation is that coach also signed a contract agreeing, coming to an agreement with that school and that institution. So technically, he is also legally buying to finish out that contract.
Right, but let's say the coach leaves.
Right.
Is it okay because the coach did something wrong? He broke his deal that he had with the college.
Right.
He's breaking his contract and word
Right.
to go to a greener pasture.
Right.
Does that give the kids on that team the right to do the same thing? He did something wrong, so we could go do something wrong.
Well, I mean, I kind of agree that okay, this coach, this guy who's probably been recruiting me ever since I was in the 9th grade,
Right.
who's basically grooming me to come to this institution, who talked about how great this institution really is, and I mean, perhaps the kid got there and just came to that institution just because the coach groomed him to come to that institution.
That's on the kid, though.
But I mean, it's on the
Right?
kid. It's on the kid. But at the same time, when you have someone, when you're dealing with kids, you have a situation where somebody familiar that they're used to leaves. I mean, quite naturally, that kid is going to want to do the same thing.
But that's life, man.
It's life. But
I mean, sometimes your girlfriend calls you and you think everything's going great, and the next thing you know, you're single.
I mean, well, yeah,
you didn't see it coming. That's just life.
That's life.
Okay,
But at
so-
the same time, I mean, you have to. I mean, you have to be able to look at it this way because you have another coach coming in. Okay, so the offense that you came in. So you came to that school for that coach's offense. You're quarterback.
Yeah.
So this coach brought you in. Okay, he's running a spread offense. So now this other coach comes in. Now he's running a pro style offense. Okay, I don't run the pro style offense. I've always done this. This is something that I've always done.
Oh, well.
So
what happens if he gets drafted by an NFL team that doesn't necessarily play the type of offense that he's used to playing?
But I mean, there's not necessarily a chance that he's going to get drafted. I mean,
But let's just say let's just say this is Jalen Hurts. This is somebody that's going to get drafted.
right?
So he's this, wide open, spread out offense, and then this coach comes in, he wants to run the wing tee, and it's going to be all power running, and he doesn't want to play there anymore. I mean, it's too bad.
I mean,
What happens when you get to the NFL and they don't have an offense that's geared around you? You got to play in their offense. Why don't we teach them those lessons in college now and not let them make the decisions? They signed on to represent that school, and that school promised to give them a degree and an education.
Well, I mean, technically, really, the kid's contract is only on a yearly basis. So, I mean, technically, I mean, they could go to another institution anytime they want.
Well, it's getting to be that way with this transfer portal nonsense. I just don't want to see free agency in college. Would you agree with that?
I mean, technically, you don't want to see it. But, like, again, the way the scholarship is set around, I mean, each year those kids have to re-sign that contract to re-sign their scholarship. So, say, for instance, that coach is there and that coach doesn't want you to play on that team anymore.
Right,
And
you
so,
can take a year
so
off and
basically
go to another school.
Basically, he cuts you. I mean, now what? Because he doesn't have room for scholarships. So is it right for the coach to say, well, you signed this scholarship to come to this institution, but now I don't want you on my team, so I'm going to bring in this other player to replace you?
No,
Should
and
the coach
that's
be able
not
to do
right
that?
if the coach does that. But
But-
my whole
but it
argument
happens.
is, it does happen, and it's not right that he does that. But my whole argument is two wrongs don't make a right. He did it, so I get to go do it. No, he did it and he's wrong, and the college should hold him accountable and not allow the students to follow in such a bad path of lack of character.
But at the same time, though, I mean, you have to understand, a coach has an agent. He has an advocate that puts these things into a contract for him. That kid doesn't have that advocate or that lawyer with somebody with that legal background to actually put those things into a contract for him. So,
But they're not signing with the coach. They're
But you
signing to
sign-
receive
but-
an education from the
but-
school,
but at the same-
and they're going to represent the school on the field of battle. That's what the agreement is.
That's the agreement. But again, that coach has some type of legal representation. Kids don't have that. Only thing the kid has is, okay, my mom says it's okay for me to come to this institution, because really when you look at most scholarship contracts, the parents are signing those contracts for the kids because the kids are underage. So
You know, we can agree to disagree on this one, and there's 10,000 other points that we can hit on. I'm just going to leave it with this: is my position is if you sign a contract, you stick to it. That's it. Whether it's pro or college. You know, the other side you could look at is say, hey, when a coach isn't performing, he gets fired, and then what happens to the coach? He gets all that money still most of the time, right?
Right. And then
when I get fired from a job out in the real world, I'm not getting paid for the rest of that year.
No, you're not. I mean,
so there's a double standard there. You at least give me that much. There's a double standard there.
Yeah, there's a double standard. I mean, even if that coach leaves, he still gets paid.
Right. So where's the double standards end? That's what we. I mean, we can pick this up next week, but you know, where does it end? That's. I mean, I say it's got to end and let the college be in charge and everybody stick to their agreement. And if stuff doesn't go right, I'm sorry. Stuff doesn't go right all the time. I mean,
right.
Look at my week. Stuff doesn't always go right. So we got a little off track from the NFL. There's a couple big games that we want to watch. One of them for me is Pittsburgh at the world champions. What's going to be great is this isn't going to be the first week 1 home opener for my team. Yeah. Putting up another championship banner. I mean, my smile is it's just great to be on top. But Roger Goodell has to sit there and watch it, and you know the boo birds are going to be out. It's not over with him.
Of course
it's not over with him. But I'm really looking forward to this game. And you know what? I'm going to tell you this. For anybody that thinks that I'm just a myopic Boston fan, that's not the case, because I really think Pittsburgh is going to give New England all they can handle. And then some. I don't think this is going to be just a walkover. And this is actually one of my teaser specials that I would take Pittsburgh plus the 12.5. And then I would take Philadelphia and get them down to minus 2.5. And I've got a lot of those on the board this week. But I'm interested to see how Josh Gordon comes out and plays.
Right.
I'm interested to see Tom Brady because he's so old. And this is the year. I mean, I've been hearing this for about 4 years now. This is the year the dynasty crumbles. And this is the year it's all over. Well, I've been hearing that for a while.
Right.
But the last time I checked, they won the Super Bowl last year. And the last time I checked, the defense that was mediocre throughout the year shut down the NFC's top offense, and they only scored 3 points in the Super Bowl. So, and I'm not even really worried about this game that much, because I know every game matters, but week 1, the Patriots never play good at the beginning of the season. They never do. They're figuring it out. They're seeing what they've got. And by the end of the season, they always have it tuned up. But I am interested in this game because I think it's going to be a good game. I mean, when you and I went over the schedule, I mean, Detroit and the Cardinals, I mean, the game that no one wants to win, I mean, I don't even care about that game at all. That's just like, I mean, I could care less about Kyler Murray. And how Matthew Stafford is making more than Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, and he has a grand total of 0 playoff wins, someone needs to help me with that. But that's one of the games I've got on that I'm looking forward to this week. What have you got on your board?
The game that I got on my board, one of the most interesting games I have is the Rams versus the Carolina Panthers. I definitely want to see how Wade Phillips' defense is going to go against North Turner's offense, especially with Cam Newton, and then
And what's Cam going to look like?
Exactly.
Is he healthy?
That's one of the $1 million questions.
Is he at a point where he's realizing he can't take off and run?
No, he's definitely going to have to take advantage using Christian McCaffrey in our offense. So I definitely want to see how North Turner is going to be able to use Cam Newton and Christian McCaffrey. How he's going to be able to move him around. Mm-hmm. Is he going to put him in the slot some? Is he going to run him out in the back? I mean, I just want to see how this is going to work out.
I'll tell you the most intriguing part of that whole game is Todd Gurley. I mean, this is like the biggest phantom enigma mystery of what happened at the end of the year with Todd Gurley last year. Was it all injuries? Was it disciplinary? Did he get something in his head? Was it a combination of those three? Did he have some problem with the coaching staff? Something wasn't right. I mean, I smell fish.
Well, with Todd Gurley, last year he had an issue with his knee.
Right.
And I
but
think
going into the Super Bowl, he was 100%, they said. And then where was he?
He didn't play, and I think it came
Why?
down
Something
to,
smells like fish.
I think there is still an issue with his knee.
So it's all health?
I think it's a health issue.
Oh, 100%.
100% healthy at you.
Well, that's what I'm interested to find out is how much is Todd Gurley going to play? How much of an impact is he going to be? And Jared Goff just got a brand new deal, which puts more pressure on Dallas with Dak Prescott now.
Right.
I can't. You got to stop me. If I start talking about Dallas, just Taylor, the producer back there, just hit the mute button. Kansas City at Jacksonville. Nick Foles is the new quarterback, and we're down here in Florida, and I can't tell you how many people I run into on the street that want to talk about Jacksonville. This is it.
Right.
We're here. We got a quarterback now. Well, you were saying that with Blake Bortles when he was down at the beach 5 days out of the week, slamming beers. What happened to that? That didn't work out. And, your GM doesn't exactly have a stellar relationship with your star running back, Mr. Fournette. And how's that going to work out? And Jalen Ramsey, another player who's super young, super talented, super no control on the mouth.
Right.
Is he going to come back down to earth and just have a year where he just plays and performs and shuts this?
Well, this year with Jalen Ramsey, it's contract time. So I think what you're going to see with Jalen Ramsey, you're going to see him actually be the all-pro corner that you've seen before.
And what are we going to see off the field?
I mean, off the field, I really don't think you're going to have any issues simply because it's contract time. It's it's money time now. So
right, that's a great point.
So with it being money time, I don't think you're going to have any issues. I think you're going to see Jalen be the quiet, humble Jalen that was there previously. Mm-hmm. And I think you're probably going to see him probably play the best out of his previous seasons there in Jacksonville.
And I'm excited to see, there's a lot of buzz about this is the year where KC will overtake New England, and that may well happen. But what I'm really excited with KC to see is LaShawn McCoy. This is it. This is the answer to get them over the top, right? They brought in LaShawn McCoy. I mean, the least amount of yards rushing in his career last year, the least amount of touchdowns. It was one of his lowest production years. And some of these message board guys with Kansas City are like, no, this is it. This is the piece that we needed. LaShawn McCoy was the piece that you needed?
But you got to think, man. This guy played.
Come on, man. We're not at that point with him.
He played with Nathan Peterman, man.
Okay.
Come on.
And
it's Buffalo.
They had Richie Incognito blocking for him, man. Richie Incognito.
It's Buffalo. They had no quarterback to open up the field. I mean, there's no way to be balanced on that offense. It's Buffalo.
I mean, EJ Manuel and their draft picks. I just can't. But listen. So we're making fun because, obviously LaShawn McCoy's been a great player throughout his career, but he's not the answer there. The answer is Travis Kelce, the speed on the outside with
Tyreek Hill.
Tyreek Hill and Mahomes. That's the answer. I think the real question with Kansas City is can Andy Reid get over the stump? Can Andy Reid make that last step? Because he's a great coach. I would put him in the upper echelon of coaches.
Right.
But he hasn't been able to make it to the top of the mountain. He hasn't. He was there with, the Patriots' third championship with Donovan McNabb, and they just didn't get over that stump. And then last year, you're thinking, hey, AFC championship, we got the MVP of the league, we got speed all over the place. They had a terrible defense, and that's what cost them in that game.
Right.
And they were ready. This was it.
Right.
But they couldn't get over that hump. And a lot of people think that they might, and they might this year. They might.
Right.
We talked last week about we're going to take 3 teams to the field. I've got KC, the Saints, and New England.
Right.
You can have the field. So I've got KC there.
Right.
But I think this is going to be a great game because it's 2 great teams. I want to see how Nick Foles works with Jacksonville. What kind of offense are they going to have? Is Leonard Fournette going to be hurt? Is he going to make it through the whole season? I think they're in a slightly weaker division now.
You sure?
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah,
but let's just focus on the game here. I think this is the premier game of the week.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, what other game is going to be better than KC and Jacksonville? Carolina?
No, man. The Pittsburgh and New England is going to be the best game of the week.
No, because I don't know if Jacksonville can do it, and I know that New England can. I know New England's going to be there in the end.
Yeah.
I mean, half the teams in their division are like a free spot on the bingo board. So I'm not really worried about New England and what they're going to look like. I mean, frankly, I'm interested in the entertainment value.
Right.
And I could care. I mean, I want them to win. Right. I'm a fan of the world champions. I'm a fan. of all the rings. I'm a fan of going to 9 Super Bowls in 18 years. I'm a fan of all that.
Yeah.
But I'm not putting all my chips in week 1. I mean, it's just the KC game. I think that's going to show us a lot more of what these two teams have than Pittsburgh, playing at Gillette on Sunday night.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting game because I definitely want to see how Pat Mahomes holds up against that pass rush. I mean, Jacksonville has, not only do they have one of the best front four, but I mean that secondary is not to be, lack or there is no lack of depth or anything at that position as well. So I definitely want to see how Pat Mahomes goes against a tough defense. But I mean, like you, I want to see how Nick Foles actually plays with Jacksonville.
Yeah, you're the man. Right. From step 1 this year with this team, it's your team, you're the man. And he really hasn't had that before.
Right.
So that's something that's way more intriguing than, we know it's Tom Brady's team.
Right.
What's the intro? What am I looking for there? I'm just looking for a good game. There's no good storyline. I think Josh Gordon's back. Whether he could stay back or not, that's not going to, play out in the game. But there's nothing there, that's super intriguing to me. Pittsburgh's going to have a good offense. Pittsburgh's going to have a solid defense. I'm just looking for entertainment value. But as far as measuring up and seeing what a team is going to look like the rest of the year, I think KC Jacksonville is far more intriguing.
Yeah, it's intriguing, but again, I understand that Brady had, he won rings before Gronk, but I'm interested to see just how this New England offense is without Gronk this year. I mean, granted, I understand he had injury problems, but when Gronk played, Gronk was a difference maker. So I definitely want to be able to see now that Brady doesn't have Gronk being able to run those seam routes up the middle, like how is it that offense is going to be different? Yeah,
but how's Brady going to react when he doesn't have Wes Welker? And how's Brady going to react when he doesn't have Randy Moss? And how's the defense going to react that Junior Seau isn't there anymore and half their linebacker, Richard Seymour got traded to Oakland? I mean, this is a revolving door of Patriots getting rid of guys at the exact right time, a year or two after their peak, knowing exactly when to get rid of them. And I just think they just plug somebody else in. I mean, that's just all that happens. It's like Wes Welker's gone. What are we going to do? Well, we'll just plug in a 5'11" quarterback from Kent State who will become one of the second all-time leading yards catcher and touchdown catcher in the playoffs behind Jerry Rice. That's all we'll do. So they always just plug somebody else in.
Yeah, but I mean, I can't. I mean, when I think of tight ends, great tight ends, I mean, Gronk is like on the Mount Rushmore or tight ends.
Yes.
And it has always, been Brady's go-to guy when he needed something,
Yeah, you're right.
And so it's definitely different.
Yeah, and they've got Ben Watson. He's going to miss 4 games, and then he'll be there. And you can say, well, he's in his 99th season.
Exactly.
That's fine. They don't need to start. I mean, listen, if you look at the Patriots, playing at the beginning of the season means nothing. This is an evaluation time for Bill Belichick and the Patriots. But if you really look at it, who have been the Hall of Fame players? I'll give you Gronk. Right. But who have been the Hall of Fame players that Brady has got to throw to or hand off to or been on the offensive line in the 20 years he's been there? If you're going to say Randy Moss, I'm going to say he was there for 2 years and he had a cup of coffee.
Right.
Okay, so who else are you going to say? Who are all these Hall of Famers that they've been, developing and going out and getting free agency? I mean, on the offensive side, where are they?
I mean,
there we go. So you just made my case. There haven't been any. They just plug somebody else in.
Yeah, they can plug somebody else in.
Yeah, so Ben Watson, they'll plug him in. You go, well, that's a drop off. That's fine. They'll have a drop off at tight end, and hopefully Josh Gordon will be back because he's one of the top 15 wide receivers in the league. If he's right off the field, if he gets what's important in life straight, he'll be solid on the field. So you just plug somebody else in.
I mean, I think with Josh Gordon, you're probably going to see Josh Gordon probably have the best season of his career. I mean, you got to think this guy came back in and played 14 games at Cleveland.
Well,
with Brian Hoyer at quarterback, and he still had more receiving yards.
He reminds me of Steve Howe, the pitcher from the Dodgers.
Right.
7 times coming back, getting busted for drugs, and it's like, what are you thinking? I can't understand what it's like to go through an addiction like that, and I'm not going to belittle anybody that's trying to overcome that because I haven't ever worn those shoes, and so I can't appreciate it. But I'm just hoping, and this isn't even because I'm a Patriots fan, I'm just hoping he gets it on straight at this point. And he came out with a tweet today and said, just watch what I do this year. I almost don't even care what he does on the field. I just want him to get him straight. On a human level, if we take sports out of it, I just want him to get him straight. You know?
Yeah, I mean, that to be said, I mean, but I kind of commend Josh Gordon because you had a situation like Justin Blackman for Jacksonville where the guy had all the talent in the world. I mean, he
wide receiver at Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State.
Right.
But he had an alcohol addiction, and it took over his life. It took away football from this guy.
Yeah.
And this guy never played football again, so you never really got to see the potential that he could have possibly had, playing football at Jacksonville. But I commend Josh Gordon because Josh Gordon, even though he keeps having these setbacks, he finds a way to, go ahead and, step back into the game and keeps fighting.
Yeah.
So, I can commend him for that. So,
Yeah,
I hope everything works out for him.
Right. And off the field more than on the field.
Right.
Right. It takes a lot of effort.
Right.
To put on. It takes a lot of effort to put on a great show.
Right.
And to perform.
Right.
Which is exactly what we do here every single week in the St. Jude studios is we spend a lot of time. We probably spend at least as much time on the air, twice as much off the air, because we want to have great content. We want to know what we're talking about, and we want to entertain you guys, but it's just fun talking sports. We don't do this to monetize it and to make money. We do it just because we're just all guys in this room who love sports and we love talking about it. Hopefully you love the content. If you do, subscribe to our channel. Hit the like button. It helps raise awareness for a great cause like St. Jude, who we love.
Right.
We love St. Jude. We talk about St. Jude every single week. If you don't know about St. Jude, you can go to rondalbeck.com. In the top left-hand corner, or as you're looking at your screen in the top right-hand corner, you can click on the St. Jude link and either donate to St. Jude, or you can go to their website and learn about all the great work that they're doing. But hit the subscribe button. Check us out every week. We're here twice a week. It might be going to 3 times a week with all the stuff in the fall with all the sports. And give us a like if you like the content. So, college football now. Last week was week number 1.
Right.
And, oh man, it's like McDonald's right now. Because I'm loving it.
I bet you.
No, I am loving it. And it's not because I hate Florida State, because I don't. I just call what it is. I just call things the way I see it. And, I'm a little reserved and I'm a little shy. It takes a lot to get my opinion out. I'm the guy that's over in the corner kind of, just laying low and, not saying too much. But are we ready to fire the coach at Florida State at this point? Now, I told you, we're just going to look back at week 1, then we'll turn to week 2 and all the games that are out there because I'm excited about a lot of them. But as our producer Taylor is looking at me right now and this huge grin I have on my face, I just got to talk about Florida State. I'm only going to take one sentence like I promised you. But Florida State, Boise, you got a home game. I'm going out of my mind here because I told you Wiliie Taggert was a bum. He needs to be, and I don't want to say he's a bum as a human being, but this was a stretch hire to bring him in. I don't even know that he's a great coordinator, but he's got to be a better coordinator than a coach. But here's my one sentence. I called you in the first quarter, about the end of the first quarter. I said, they're just gashing you guys on their run play. Boise State is gashing you guys. 7 and 8, and you said you were watching the game on your phone. 7, 8, 13, 22 yards a carry. And I'll just leave it at that. That's all I'm going to say. And whatever you want to say about Florida State, I don't know how sick you are at this point, but I am done. And I will give the microphone, the time, and the camera to you.
Well, I had to woosah after that game. I tried not to had to woosah. I had to take a deep breath.
How many?
Ooh, it's a bunch of them. I was upset after that game.
Upset? Wait, upset's the word you're going to use?
I was livid.
Come on, let it out. Let's purge this thing.
I was some words that I can't say on camera, but you know, I looked at this game and I looked at a coach who, to me, doesn't know how to win in tough situations.
But I got to ask you a question real quick.
Go ahead.
How long have I told you about Wiliie Taggert?
Well, I mean, you've told me about Wiliie Taggert as long as I've known you. So, you know,
I don't want to say I told you so, because you're not throwing a lot of credit over here. But no, I'll let you continue with the freshman quarterback, 600 yards, playing without heart, like I said, playing undisciplined, like I said, not being able to adjust mid-game, like I said. Go ahead.
So after this game, I go back and I look at the stats. Boise State put up over 600 yards on a team that has 4- and 5-star players in every position.
Yeah.
On that defense.
Playing at home.
To
half a stadium.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and it's like, what are you doing? You had a quarterback who is 20 yards off the ball and there's like 3rd and 5. Why are you 20 yards off the ball? You know, I mean, I looked at a defensive coordinator who took away basically one of Florida State's strength, which is their defensive line, as he changed their defensive base from a 4-3 to a 3-4, basically exposing the linebackers, the same issues you had last year, but you made it even worse by taking away that pressure up front. So
how bad were they getting gashed in that game? That wasn't hyperbolic talk. I mean, they were just getting gashed.
Right. I'm looking at, as I'm going looking over the stat line. I mean, you had their main running back. He had like 167 yards rushing. You had at least 2 or 3 more guys that had, you know, like 30, 40 yards rushing. And so as I'm sitting here looking at these stats, and I'm sitting here looking at Florida State is supposed to be this better team, as Wiliie Taggert says. We're supposed to be better. We're supposed to be all in now. We have everything situated.
Well, Chris, they were dehydrated.
But
no, Chris, they were dehydrated. Wiliie Taggert even said,
"No,
our performance is directly linked to the dehydration factor."
That quote was taken out of context. That was sensationalized by the media.
Okay,
you have to actually go back and listen to the actual talk show. But other than that's
Chris,
besides the point though.
Let the anger out. Let's get this.
Where I am really frustrated and really angered at is this defense is supposed to be the strength of your team. Yeah. This defense is supposed to actually be able to hold up your offense as this offense is going through this new transition. This offensive line was supposed to be better because you brought in Kendall Browse and you brought in the offensive line coach from Houston. So I mean, you made all of these changes, but I haven't seen the difference.
Well, I'm going to tell you what I saw in the first and second quarter when you and I were talking and we were both watching the game. Their defensive line was getting blown back 3, 4, and 5 yards on every single running play, and it wasn't even funny. It wasn't even competitive. There were holes that you could drive a team through of Mack trucks through. And those guys, Boise State, I don't think of them as a super solid running team. And besides that, they're not used to playing in the heat.
Nope.
So I don't want to hear about the heat and conditioning. And you had all summer to get conditioned.
Right.
And they had a freshman quarterback who hasn't done spit in college. And you're letting him put up over 600 yards in offense. Last week on the show, I said the biggest problem with Florida State is they don't play with heart. There's no urgency. And that's exactly what we saw in the third quarter. They just wilted like a flower in an oven. No heart.
Yeah.
Not to mention turnovers, not to mention undisciplined play, not to mention the immaturity factor that you and I saw in the fourth quarter when they scored a touchdown. And then it's like, oh yeah, we're going to go over and stand in front of the cameras and we're going to be all bad. By the way, you lost the game. By the way, when with 3 minutes left in the game, Boise gets it down to the 3-yard line. You actually cause a fumble. And instead of diving on it, you want to pick it up and advance the ball away when you could have just killed the clock right there. And in turn, you lose the ball. Boise gets it back, runs it in for a touchdown, and that's game over. So here's the big question for the week. They have a super tough game at home this week against Louisiana Monroe. Now, this is going to be a very, very difficult game for them. Louisiana Monroe is a perennial top 10 team. Most of their coaching staff has been picked off of other teams like Urban Meyer's staff and Alabama and Dabo Sweeney's staff at Clemson, and they have a lot of superstar NFL-type players. And this is going to be the biggest challenge for Florida State because ULM is no joke. What happens if they lose this week?
If they lose this week.
If Florida State loses to ULM.
I put a big if they lose, which they shouldn't. Kendall Browse is the head coach before he leaves the stadium.
How soon do you fire your coach if they lose this week?
Kendall Browse is the coach before he leaves the stadium. I mean, Wiliie
Taggert's fired before he gets to his car?
Before he gets to the car, before he gets to the tunnel. So, I mean, if
sir, wrong tunnel. You're going out the permanent tunnel.
Yeah.
You're not going to the locker, but I have stuff over there. No, you don't.
Yeah.
You have nothing here anymore.
Yeah, no.
If they lose it, he's fired.
Yeah, we have his boxes already packed up.
I would.
We'll go ahead and have the Mayflower truck sitting there by, 5 minutes in the fourth quarter. Mayflower truck is pulling up to his driveway.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy is going.
There's no hotter seat.
No, I mean.
The only one that's even close could be Chip Kelly, but it's not even, I don't even think it's that close.
No, and but the issue that I have with Florida State is they, as bad as that defense played, their stats when they were in man,
here we go,
has always been pretty good.
You're not willing to accept where they are, Chris.
So no. Listen. So when the issue that I have with Florida State is whenever they drop back and they play a zone defense, a quarterback eats them alive because they don't communicate, and that's a sign of the lack of coaching that's coming from that defensive coordinator.
So if they go to man-to-man, that's going to stop a super awesome, well-known rushing team like Boise from gashing them.
Listen to the stat, though. I mean, when Florida State was in man, the kid from Boise State, he actually only averaged 16% passing when they were in man.
Yeah, because he was handing off all the time, and they were getting 7 and 8
but
yards.
That was man and passing. The kid, he actually threw 54 passes. So when they were in man defense, they actually were effective. And so the issue that I have with the defensive coordinator with Florida State is, why is it that you can't get your corners to be able to communicate and actually play the same way they play in man to play that same way in zone?
It starts at the top. That's
exactly.
Why. It starts at the top, and since you're not going to say it, I'm going to say it. I told you so. It starts at the top. The problem is Wiliie Taggert is the issue. He doesn't have a command on this team. He's not showing leadership. He's not making halftime adjustments. I think he lost the team halfway through the season last year, and what I saw on Saturday isn't even Florida State bashing. They're just pathetic. They just are. They didn't play with any urgency. They had this just cavalier Ole defense. I mean, I'm putting them to bed for the rest of the show, Florida State. I don't want to beat a dead horse because they're a dead horse. I can't. There's other things that happened last week in college football that have piqued my interest that I wanted to talk about. One of them that we wanted to see what happened when Jalen Hurts went to Oklahoma. I think we saw what happened, over 500 yards in total offense from one guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I liked is Jalen Hurts is just a stand-up kid. I mean, that's just the way it is. He's a solid player, and you want to talk about what this kid has been through, and he has never come out and said bleep one bad word about anybody. I mean, he is just like a super solid player. Not only is he talented, he is mature as all get out. I just love this kid. Right now, I have him number 2 for the Heisman. Now, I'll tell you who I have number 1 because it's week 1.
All right.
Everything changes. Guys that are hot in week 1 for the Heisman, 5 weeks later, you're like, who? So, not with this guy. Jalen Hurts last week, he showed me something, and I think Oklahoma's going to be what they were last year. I think they're going to have a pedestrian defense that gives up way too many yards and big plays. But I think on offense, they're just going to be lights out. They got wide receivers. They've got a good offensive line.
Right.
They can run it with Sermon. They can run it with Hurts. They can pass. I'm in love with them. I mean, I think that they could be one of the 4 in the playoff. I think it's going to come down to the Big 10 or the Big 12 championship game.
Right.
That's going to make their season right there. I mean, they can lose to Texas, still get into the championship game, and then make it into the what Lincoln Riley has to do to fix that defense. I don't know. You can't let Houston. I mean, you could say they have a great quarterback, but they lost a lot on offense last year. And they have a new coach who's all offensive-minded, but he's only in his first year, Dana Holgorsen. I just want to focus on Jalen Hurts. I think he's a stud human being. I think he's a stand-up kid, character guy, and he's awesome on the field.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you have to, look at the situation he had at Alabama. I mean, you have Tua who's putting up, Heisman numbers last year. And he went down, and he was hurt last year, even though nobody really wanted to admit it. But I mean, you look at Jalen Hurts coming into the SEC championship game and delivering, off the bench, just
so impressive.
I mean, he just comes off the bench, delivers, walks out of the game like nothing really happened. So I think the guy's a stand-up kid. And I wish him nothing but the best.
I do too, and I think he's awesome. Let's get to some of the other games. USC last week looked against Fresno State at home. The big thing with USC is they lost JT Daniels, their quarterback. He's out for the year.
Right.
And so, again, more spotlight and more heat on the seat for Clay Helton, 32-17. He's making $4 million a year. I think he's gone. And I'll tell you what, by the end of the season or at the end of the season, he's out. And I'll tell you who replaces him, Urban Meyer.
Really?
Yep.
You really think Urban's going to go to California again?
Yeah. I mean, look, Bowling Green, Utah, Florida, Ohio State, L.A. I mean, what's keeping him from going there? He's working out there now for Fox. Clay Helton will be gone at the end of this season. At $4 million a year and a 32-17 record, do you see them winning the Pac-12?
I mean, I don't see them winning the Pac-12.
No, so he's done.
But yeah, I can see USC kicking the tires on Urban Meyer, but I really think Urban is done now.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's my prediction. I mean, I've been wrong before, but I could see that playing out. The biggest story of the week for me last week was my guy that I've got at number 1 for the Heisman right now, which is Jonathan Taylor, the running back out of Wisconsin. 16 carries, 135 yards, 2 touchdowns. 48 yards, and another 2 touchdowns. Now, you could say it was against South Florida. I'm going to say I don't care. You got 4 touchdowns in a game and 139 yards rushing, 135 yards rushing, plus 50 yards out of the backfield receiving on only 2 catches. This kid's a stud. Powerful, runs outside, runs through the tackles, doesn't fumble, solid guy off the field. That's what stood out to me in week 1. What about you?
What stood out to me in week 1 was Tua. I mean, the guy actually almost had a perfect game. I mean, he only missed like 5 passes, and he had over 300 yards. 4 touchdowns.
Slow start for them against Duke.
Slow start, yeah, just against Duke. But I mean, you got to think a lot of those teams that played last week. They played pedestrian teams. I mean, Duke isn't world beaters, but
no.
I mean, they were in a Power 5 conference. So Alabama, continues to play these type of Power 5 conferences to start out, just to kind of to test themselves before they go into conference play. So I mean, when you look at going almost perfect for over 300 yards and 4 touchdowns, you can't really beat that.
Yeah, I mean, both those guys had great weeks last week. Let's go speed round on what we're looking forward to this week in college football. I'm going to start off with what I think is my shocking game of the week. Army at Michigan. Michigan's got everything to prove. Nobody knows about Army. I'm taking Army on a teaser and getting 29 points, and I'm loving it like McDonald's all day long, man. I mean, I don't care if they're playing in the big house. Army last year, 11 wins. Big win against Houston in the bowl game. Put up 70 points. I just think Army's solid. 30 points is way too many. put me down for Army. I'm loving them against Michigan. Michigan's bipolar. I don't know what I'm getting out of them.
No, you really don't. And again, Harbaugh's another one of those guys who actually needs to be able to win games they're supposed to win. So, I mean, I'm with you on that Army game. Yeah.
All right. So you're taking Army?
Yeah.
Okay. The next game, this is one of the two big games this week. Texas A&M, and there's already some trash talk going on between these two teams. Texas A&M's got to go to Death Valley and play Clemson. Clemson is just lights out.
Right.
I mean, and I think Texas A&M is solid, and it's not the SEC factor. I just think Texas A&M is a solid team. Texas A&M is getting 17.5 points. I'm gonna take the 17.5 points on this one and go ride with Texas A&M.
Well, I mean, I think what a lot of people forget too is Texas A&M was one of the only teams that actually took Clemson to the brink of defeat last year. I mean, you think about it. If that play went one way or the other, went the other way, Clemson has another loss. Clemson has a loss. So I think that game is going to be closer than what the experts think. I mean,
17.5 is a lot of points to give a solid team like Texas
exactly.
A&M. Let's go to our next game. Last week, Tennessee totally disappointing at home. I mean, what's new? I don't know what their expectation level is. Neyland Stadium wasn't even full. There was about 30,000 people that showed up dressed like empty chairs. So to lose your home opener, I don't know. You got BYU coming in. Tennessee's playing at home. Somehow Tennessee is given 3.5. I'll take BYU in the 3.5 at this point, Chris.
Yeah, I think BYU definitely. I actually think BYU is actually going to beat Tennessee. To be honest with you, I think that Tennessee hasn't really proven anything. I think Tennessee also, they can't stop the run. They had an issue with a dual threat quarterback. And BYU's quarterback, he brings those same type of problems that they had last week with Georgia State. So I actually think that BYU is going to go into Neyland, and they're actually going to walk out with a win.
And last year, BYU was a giant killer going into Camp Randall and knocking off a good Wisconsin team last year. Wisconsin was a solid team. They knocked them off. The next big game on the docket for this week, LSU goes to Austin and plays Texas. Texas is getting 6.5 points. Who you like in that game?
In that game, I'm going to take LSU. I hope the linebacker who talked the trash in the game, I hope he backs it up. Because you can't come out and actually tell a team that they actually think they're going to win. You actually state that, and you say that on TV that they actually think they're going to win. No, I hope he goes and he's able to back it up. But I take LSU.
I'm going the other way. I'm taking Sam Ehlinger. I don't know what Baker Mayfield was talking about in the offseason. It's probably just the rivalry thing between Oklahoma and Texas, smack-talking Sam Ehlinger from the quarterback from Texas. I'm buying in on him. I love this kid. I'm putting all my chips in on him. And Texas is playing at home. I'm taking the 6.5 points, and if I I'll put it with the teaser and get 12.5 and really win. I could see Texas walking out with a win here. This is going to be a tough game. I think it's going to be an absolute bloodbath, but I'm going with Texas on this one. Off the radar game, Miami goes on the road and takes on UNC, who's got Mac Brown, who's just like living in heaven after they beat South Carolina. That interview after the game, he was like, he just won the lottery. I'm like, you beat Will Muschamp. Everybody does that. South Carolina is not showing me anything. They were borderline pedestrian in that game. They didn't show me anything that blew me off the map. So I don't know. I don't know what there is to get excited about at UNC. They're getting 3.5 points right now, and Miami's given 3.5 as a road team. I'll roll with Miami. I just think I literally think they had an off game against Florida. I think they're going to come back around. I think Manny Diaz is going to get it solid, and I'm going to take Miami on this one and lay the 3.5 for 4 points.
Well, I understand what Mac Brown was so giddy and so happy about. You got to think. He's down 20-9 with a freshman quarterback who comes back and throws 3 touchdowns to actually get them to win. So when you have a freshman quarterback and you depend on the run the whole 3 quarters, and then in the 4th quarter, this guy steps up and throws 3 touchdowns to give you the win, I would be kind of happy and kind of giddy too. I look for Miami to have a tough game. But at the same time, when I'm looking at Miami's young quarterback, he's kind of indecisive with the ball. So I think if they're able to get pressure on him, just kind of like Florida did, I think he may fold again.
No, Mayfold, nothing. This is my 5-star lock of the millennium. I'm taking Miami. I'm laying the points on that one. This is my guaranteed lock. Kind of an off the board game. Washington at home against Cal. They're both 1-0, which means nothing.
Right.
But I was super impressed with Jacob Eason and Washington. I think they have a lockdown defense. They have a great tradition there. They're a solid team every single year, and they have a great coach. I'm taking Washington. I think Washington's going to roll all over them.
Yeah, I take Washington as well. I mean, Jacob Eason was the number one quarterback coming out, in his recruiting class.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he went to Georgia. He actually played pretty decent. I mean, he has that experience playing against the SEC, which are actually tougher defenses than the Pac-12. And so I look for him to actually come out and have a good showing against Cal.
Yeah. I know what you're thinking right now. You want to be sitting here in the St. Jude studios with Chris and I. Well, you can. You want to be a part of the show? That's fine. We welcome your calls and your questions to us. Just log on and send us an email with your comments or questions. We'll be pulling them up during the show. If you want to do that, go to thefirstraundrd@gmail.com. Get in your comments and questions. You could be a part of the show. Give us your predictions. If you don't like our predictions, we're going to keep track throughout the season. Miami's my 5-star millennial lock of the week. I'm so sold in on them. Last couple things I wanted to touch on in the end of the show here. One of them is the MMA this week. Habib Nurmagomedov.
You got it?
I hate saying that name, even though he's really solid. He's 27-0. He took down Conor. Everybody knows Conor can't go more than 3 rounds, and I think he's solid. He's taking on Dustin Poirier, who's 25-5. I've got Khabib winning this fight. I just think he's just outskilled, outconditioned, out-talented, and it doesn't mean that Dustin Poirier is not a good MMA fighter. I think he is.
Right.
I just think he's slightly outmatched in this. So I'm going with Khabib on Saturday night. I'm
taking Khabib as well. I mean, his ground game, his wrestling game, his submission game is impeccable. So, I'm taking Khabib as well.
Yeah. Another one that's a little more off the radar that not a lot of people are talking about is the Irishman Paul Felder against Edson Barbosa. I am loving Barbosa in this one. Again, great ground game. He can wrestle. He's got spin kicks. Good striker. I just think that he's going to come out ahead, and anything can happen once you get over 155. This is a 155 fight. One shot.
Right.
Anybody can win, and it doesn't mean that Paul Felder is not a good MMA fighter, because he is. He's super strong. He's got a chin. He's been in tough fights. He can street fight with you, and he can grapple. I just love Edson Barbosa. I think he's going to take this fight. He's at -160, so you put up $160, you'll win $100.
Yeah. I'm taking Barbosa as well. Just looking at his ability to strike, and looking at some of these powerful kicks he has. I'm taking him as well.
Yeah. So last thing I wanted to talk about on the show this week was watching College Game Day 2 weeks ago in Orlando, and then last week in Texas. There's so many times during games where you just hear the same terminology is just overused. So I said, hey, let's come up with a list of the 3 most overused phrases in sports right now. And I've got to start with Kirk Herbstreit's favorite saying. I know, you're laughing already, right? You know what I'm going to say? That team is really buying in.
Right.
If I hear that one more time, I just want you to tear my body into little dog bite-sized pieces, put it into a rocket, and shoot it into outer space, because I can't anymore. And Kirk Herbstreit, he's the worst at it, which doesn't mean he's a bad analyst, because he's a good analyst. But that saying, if I hear that one more time, I just want to put a scattergun in my mouth and release all of it into my head.
Yeah,
They're really buying into the system.
Yeah, my top one is the Batman and Robin analogy. I mean, the first thing I think of is like the 1960s Batman and Robin with Adam West and I'm just like, okay, You have two good players. Why do they have to be Batman and Robin?
That's such a stretch.
I know, right? I mean, it was Iron Man and Captain America. I mean, they work together as a team. Why does it always have to be Batman and Robin?
Yeah. My second one is almost equally as hated as my first one. This is what coaches say when they don't have an answer for why something just happened, why they just lost. This is Wiliie Taggert. What he writes on his presence from Wiliie Taggert to whoever, and right underneath he puts, "Hey, it is what it is." What the hell is that? It is what it is. It's a microphone. It is what it is. It's a microphone. Why'd you explain what that means? That's such a cop-out. It is what it is. I hate that one. It's so overused.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're really going to hate the second one. This one right here, then. Defense, we just took what the defense gave us. I'm just like,
that's so stupid.
Really?
Yeah, why'd you expose the defense?
Sure.
I know, we're just taking what the defense gives you. I hate that one too. My third one is that kid is a real athlete. We need to get him in space.
Right.
Really, need to get him in space. What about the guys that aren't athletes?
Yeah.
Where do they go? We need to get this guy in space. He's a real athlete. Isn't that what's been going on in college football? Get away from the defense into space since 100 years ago, 150 years ago?
Nah.
Ever since day one? Let's get in space?
Nah, we're just going to put him in a black hole and, hopefully the light can get out of there. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what.
You remember Pooh Bear Williams?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like 6'2", 500-pound running back for Florida State.
Yeah.
Well, what we need to do is, to really expose his talent and let his light shine, we need to get him in space.
Yeah, he got in space.
Bring him out of the backfield and get him in space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guy.
What about those tight ends? They're speed demons.
Sure.
We need to get those guys in space and really expose their talent.
Exactly.
Oh, those are my three.
Yeah, my final one. Oh boy, my final one is he's such a good locker room presence. So I mean, I don't get it. Is this like some type of backhanded comment? I mean, geez. I mean, he's just a good locker room presence. Like he doesn't play.
He sucks on the field, but in the locker room, man, you should see how good he does that laundry.
He's a great leader in the locker room.
He collects all the cleats and puts them at 90-degree angles right there in the locker. I mean, he sets up everybody's locker. He's such a locker room presence. He's awesome.
I know. He brings brownies in and has good chocolate chip cookies. I mean,
what do you do on the field? That's all I care about. I know what the saying means, but that music can mean only one thing. We want to thank our support staff, the Son of God, Taylor, our awesome producer, my co-host, Chris Roberts. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for participating. For all of us here in the St. Jude studios in the first round, we want to say take care. We'll see you next time, everybody.